Good afternoon. Today, welcome, whatever.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day, sir.
Hola.
Hola.
We wanted to take this vid we talked last chat about our trip. Went through just the whole trip, what we did, where we went, how we did, etc.
Tangents and galore.
And then we wanted to chat now about the recap of all the deets of the trip, what we liked about the trip, some recommendations for those looking going on a trip like the one we did, whether you have 6 kids, 1 kid's going by yourself, 1 kid's, but going for a month road trip to 3 different countries and just having some fun. Here's what we got for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to start off what surprised us the most. What do you think? What was the most surprising part that we didn't think of, or we're like, well, didn't see that coming from our trip?
Good question. I feel like, so we decided instead of doing a big suitcase with everyone's clothes, all the kids had their own little Rubbermaid. And I thought that they would be messier, and I thought that they would be more, I thought the kids would help carry it in more. I don't know why that surprised me, but I found that we were carrying them for them a lot. But yeah, I guess it surprised me. Is it a surprise? I'm just pleasantly surprised that it worked as well as it did, despite me having to carry them in. I guess I would have had to carry the suitcase in myself too. And the older ones did help, but the younger ones, we were like, hey, take your bin. And they were like, I can't.
Yeah, you got it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Mine might be along those lines. I'm thinking what surprised me the most was we had, I think we counted out 10 transitions. Is that right? I think we stayed in 10 different places throughout the trip. And with kids 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to sleeping schedules and all that jazz. So it was obviously tricky, but and surprising in the fact that we were surprised how good. Well, I guess we weren't really surprised. It was a pleasant, reassuring, because our kids have always been really good. We've traveled a lot since the first was born. We went to the Middle East when she was a couple weeks old, and I've road tripped and just done that kind of their whole lives. So that conditioning has been really good, but it's also always kind of a surprise to, especially at home when we have our schedules and places and beds and all that, and it's pretty routine. But a nice surprise that we went, and everyone, I can't remember a single night that
went poorly.
Was nightmarish. Everyone slept really well. Even the 1-year-old had a really good sleep routine going on.
Oh, that's not true. It was the first night. We didn't know.
I was going to say there was one awful.
It was, our 1-year-old doesn't sleep in the same room as us. He does, but he's in our closet. So there's a wall. Even though it's the same room, there's a wall. And we put him in his playpen, and he was in the same room as us, and there was no wall. And it was like he could like sense our energy, and he was like, why are we not hanging out?
Yeah.
So we learned that even just having him, we would put him in either the ensuite, like wherever we were staying, the ensuite, or in the closet. But as long as there was like a barrier between us, he slept much better.
Yeah, that was a huge game changer.
Yeah. Anything else that surprised you?
Surprising was I was pleasantly surprised at how awesome Mexico was.
Were you surprised? I feel like that's what you were most excited for.
I was most excited for, but I was also surprised because I think going into it, we had some apprehension on a lot of what people were saying and a lot of media and everything that, oh, it's going to be scary, it's going to be sketchy, we're going to be worried about losing our kids or getting the van stolen, things like that. So that was probably my most surprising and most best. We'll skip ahead to that. But most surprised, I think, was how awesome, how easy, how fun, how lovely Mexico was. That would be another one for me.
Yeah. I think one last one is I'm surprised that with the amount of planning I did and the amount of things like that we were going to see, it's always surprising to see how the trip actually turns out. Because that's how we travel, is we make a plan, but it's just a loose plan, and then we...
More of guidelines.
It's a guideline. But then we go and we're like, hey, this sounds fun, or this sounds nightmarish now that we're here. And so we just shift and change as things go. And yeah, so that was surprising to see how the trip actually played out.
Yeah. Next one was best and worst moments. So best moment for me when I look back on it, again, it would be Mexico. I just loved a lot about it. I loved wandering the streets, checking out the different vibes, different scenes. Street tacos were amazing, but probably the highlight was doing sunsets on the beach every night in Mexico. We made it a goal, and I think we did it just about every night we were there. We were on the beach for sunset, and it was stunning. I loved it. That was the biggest highlight for me for sure.
I don't know if there was a best moment because it was a very fun trip and everything was really great. Mike, as his current job as a realtor, he is on the phone a lot and doing work on the go just because it's convenient that we can still go do things as a family, but sometimes he has to slip away for a tiny bit just to do some texts or some emails, write a quick offer.
Just bang on a quick deal.
But honestly, that actually happens. And so I think the best part of the trip for me was the fact that we were all together as a family and the kids weren't distracted by friends or school, and I wasn't distracted by well, I guess we had some chores, but it was just we were all together and there was no distractions, and that was lovely.
Yeah, that was nice to come home and looking back at it, I'm like, oh, I worked like a handful of hours that month. That was amazing.
It was great.
Worst.
Oh, worst.
Worst for me would have been some of the driving. Definitely some of the driving days, especially towards the end. The kids were getting pretty tired. We were getting pretty tired. The depression of like, we have 7 more hours. I probably wasn't in my finest form at all times there with dealing with the kids when we were driving on those long haul days. So
well, and
that was rough.
The last driving day was a long haul day, and one of our sons, I realize now he was car sick, but he kept being like, "This kid stinks," and he was just like miserable. He's 3, so he couldn't explain what he was feeling, but he was just like complaining. We were like, "What are you doing?" And then he got car sick. We were like, "Okay." And
then he barfed everywhere, and that made everything
just so much better.
Oh, this is so much better.
No. But then once he barfed, he was able to fall asleep. Anyways.
That's true.
The worst moment for the trip for me, and this is so silly, but it really was just like the worst. We were at Disneyland and I left and I was like, it's going to be great. I'm going to go to Subway. It's 9 minutes away. And this is no fault of anyone other than the drivers of LA and also just me not knowing this about it. But Google Maps said that the Subway was 9 minutes away. So I drive there and it took about 9 minutes to get there. And so then I go, and then I'm trying to figure out, we had this deal that we thought, and then the deal wasn't a deal. And so I was trying to make this deal work to get just a bunch of subs for cheap, and it didn't work. And then I was like, I'm just going to buy the subs. Why am I stressing about this? Let's just buy them. So then I do this, and then I'm buying a million, and then the line behind me suddenly gets really long, so that I feel bad about that. And then I get all the stuff, we get in the car, and then there's a 9-minute drive back to Disneyland. And did I say it took about an hour, or was it 45 minutes?
For the drive, like an hour.
9-minute drive took 1 hour, and I was so mad, but also so stressed because I knew that Mike and the 4-year-olds were at the park starving. We'd been going for 11 hours at this point. So I'm like, they're starving. I want to get back to Disneyland. This should not be happening. It was frustrating, and just, I think it was mostly stressful because I was like, we're at Disneyland. I want to get the most out of Disneyland. I want Mike and the kids to have food so that we're not just like, I want to enjoy the last 3 hours and not be like an emotional, because you get hangry and then it's hard to shake that. It was just. So
lessons learned, and our friends are giving us a really hard time, and that's fair.
Like, you didn't eat at the park?
Just eat at the park.
It's like 9 minutes away.
It is way more expensive, but it's not 3 hours of not being in the park more expensive.
Because that's the other thing, is that it was 1 hour to drive, but it was also, I had to get out of the park and take the trolley and then carry the boys, close up the stroller, and then all that reverse and get all it was just, and I couldn't find it was a balloon show. I went to the wrong parkade and then had to walk really far to get to the right parkade.
But aside from that, Disneyland was also a highlight. That was one of the best parts of the trip. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm not complaining. I had a great time. It was an amazing trip, and that was the worst part.
Yeah. Another one, did we get sick of each other? That was one.
Like,
that
and
I
is
thought
that
was
question,
interesting.
are we sick of the kids or each other?
Each other, because I mean, looking at this and even planning it for us, a month long road trip is a month of everyone together all the time, pretty much. So you're in the van, or we're at Airbnb, or we're at an amusement park. There wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go play with my friends. I'll see you in a couple hours. There wasn't, hey, I'm going to work. There wasn't mom like, I'm going to go take a nap. Or there wasn't a lot of down me time where we all just hung out. And especially with the 6 kids, any Airbnb that we went to, we weren't staying at like these huge places. So they were pretty much like multiple beds in a room, or there wasn't. So we rarely hung out in the Airbnb as well. I found, because it was just like there's not that everyone's on top of each other. We got a Nintendo Switch for the trip, and even with the Nintendo, like everyone's too close. Little boys are getting into stuff they shouldn't be. So it was always just like or like constant kid minding, or keeping people attention on certain things or off certain things. So, but was it too much?
I don't remember getting sick of anyone, although Mike and I went on a date, and that's the thing, is that it was a month and a half ago, so rose tinted glasses. But Mike and I went on a date sometime in Mexico.
Yeah.
And it was just him and I was like, holy smokes, we needed that.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like we got sick of each other, but it was excellent to have a tiny break, even if it was just like an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I am not as good as my wife, so I got sick of people, I think, or I was like, I'm done with this for a little bit. And there was certain times where, on the beach or when we were out and about, that you could take off and go on. I usually took the trip of getting the kid Hugh to sleep in the stroller, so I'd go and walk by myself for a half hour, so putting the baby to sleep. So yes, there's not a alone time, and yes, you're together a lot, but you don't have to get sick of each other. And there's ways that you can find alone time as a couple, or just by yourself and get away from the kids, or even the kids to get away from each other as well, and just have some alone time. There's definitely ways to do that. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Yeah. And then I realized Mike wanted me to have this all be live, as if we're going live, but this is something we could cut out if we feel it's inappropriate. But also, a month together with kids and in small Airbnbs, it's hard to be together as a couple. And mostly just because you're exhausted by the end of the day. So that was... that's the
thing. It wasn't even that we didn't have alone time. It was just like alone time was like, hey, good
night. Tap out. Good work. We did it. No one died. No one was lost.
For honor and glory.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's another question we were thinking of, is traveling as a family versus a couple.
I mean, it's always, well, I don't know. Maybe it's different for the families, but I always enjoy traveling as a couple way more. I love my children, and I'm one of the weirdos who likes going grocery shopping with my kids, but still way rather just go on a trip with Mike.
Yeah. And I mean, we had a season of that. We had multiple years where we lived, we had years before kids were in the family, and we lived in Asia and got to travel lots and lots and lots. So we have lots of experience traveling together, and some amazing memories looking back, and we love looking at the photos and the videos. But we also appreciate that is a season of our life that is long gone and it's long in the future still. We've been looking at trying to do a trip together, go to get away to Mexico, all inclusive or something like that. And even that was like, okay, who do we find for even 5 days, a week, that can handle all the kids, that could come to our house? Our family's all in a different city, and so it's just like, you know what, this isn't gonna work very well.
Yeah. One day.
Hey kids, let's keep on going together as a family. That's what we're gonna do.
And you know what? It's fun to go together as a family. It's just a little bit more work, a little more planning. It's okay when you're as a couple. If you get a little hangry, well, maybe not. For us, it's okay. For us, it's okay if we have less of a plan. For the kids, you just need a plan, and you need to make sure you have all the things you need, like snacks and
going anywhere is a procession. Is a plan.
It is. Whereas one time when we were first married, we went to a city and we only brought our underwear for, was it a week or 5 days?
A week.
And we hadn't booked any hotels. brought no clothes, and we were just like, let's buy clothes. This was in China, so everything was super cheap, and figure out where we're going to sleep for when we get there.
That was cool.
It was so fun.
Well, you would never, ever think of that with kids.
It would be the worst. And also, it was probably a bad idea in China, too, because I think I wore my jeans every single day that trip because I couldn't find pants that fit me because I'm such a large woman in China. And I had to buy men's shoes.
If you're a 5'9" woman with size 10 feet, don't go to China without any clothes. You might not be able to find any.
Well, you will. You'll just get laughed at and sent to men's stores.
Also, for budget for the trip, that's one thing we wanted to hit on. People planning on a trip like this, what would you expect for dollars?
It depends how you do it as well.
Yeah,
we're super cheap.
We like to stretch our dollar and get the most of it, and I think we had a pretty amazing trip. For still, it wasn't cheap by any means. I think we total came into about 10 grand for the month. But I guess when you're considering, we went to Disneyland, Universal, drove 7,000 K.
Stayed at a high-end
stayed at
place
multiple different places, ate out, all that jazz for a month. 10 grand starts to be like, okay, for 8 people.
Yeah, we went grocery shopping a lot. We went out to eat to cheaper places. We didn't get a lot of treats. Would you say? We got some, but not a lot. And we
had fun. We feel like traveling and eating, that's a big part of the experience. And so we did that in Mexico. We tried new things. And
well, the kids had some restaurants, American restaurants. It was really ridiculous. Pepper really wanted to go to Chick-fil-A, and then the day we went to Chick-fil-A, she was like, I do not feel like chicken.
But also, when you look at even, what was it? We went to just some random diner in Vegas.
Oh, and it was so good.
It was great, and we had kid discount, half off for 2 kids, yada yada. But still, by the time we were out of there, I think we were at 80 US.
Yeah, it's not
which
cheap.
Is like 120 Canadian for a lunch. So if you look at it like that, then easily, if you're doing that every day, our budget would have been crazy higher. Yeah. But we grocery shopped a lot. We also were lucky in that we were able to stay with family and friends quite a bit as far as accommodations and stuff.
And we also had a cooler with us, so when we went out, we would have like Nutella sandwiches and apples and oranges and bananas. So we had snacks, so we didn't feel the need to buy a lot of other things when we were out and about. Yeah.
So that was huge, that we always had food available, but it was always, groceries, and we hit up Costco a lot. Mm-hmm. Did a lot of Costco cafeteria stuff. It was good. Gas, I think we were like $1,700. This is all Canadian. Accommodations, we were like $2,500, and then the rest was food.
And fun.
Was fun. Yeah, we even, I think that 10 grand is even with us pretty much getting into Disneyland for free, which was amazing. We have a pretty sweet hookup with a close family friend of ours. But so that saved us $1,500. But Universal was still about $1,000.
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, yeah, probably Canadian, about $1,000.
Yeah. So, I don't know that we could have done it cheaper.
No. Well,
maybe like we could have actually taken a tent and a camp, camped and went in a tent, and we never gone out to eat. We could have shaved it down, but I feel like we did it pretty bare bonesy, and it still was 10 grand for the month. So for 8 people.
Yeah,
and that's driving our massive 12-passenger, heinously terrible on gas van. So if you did it in a car or like 1 or 2 kids, I'm sure it'd be a lot cheaper.
But but it's a good trip.
That's what we wanted to
hash out.
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah. The one thing I would change is eating at Disneyland, especially since we got in for free. What were we thinking? That's true. Looking forward to our next. Not free, almost free.
Yeah, and looking forward to our next trip, our next adventure coming up in September. I've been waffling a lot on, do we go straight there? Do we set up? Do we take a month to get out there and do a lot more of this road trip, camp, visit different places? Becca's more keen. Becca's more keen to get out there and get settled, and I'm like, hey, if we're driving all that way, why not hit up everything in between? So
I'm not saying that I don't want to hit up all the things. I just want to take a month. I say take a week. It's like say a week to get there anyway. Well, we can travel once we get there, but it'd be nice to get there and unpack our stuff and then travel with much less stuff.
That's true. But also reviewing this, I think doing another big long month trip like this as a family probably won't. Well, traveling to our next destination, I would like to. But I don't think it's a super sustainable, like do every other month, do a big month-long road trip, obviously, or even once a year. I think we can do it once a year.
Yeah.
But I'm more excited about now doing week-long trips, just doing jaunts and go somewhere, 8 hours away tops, hit up spots along the way, come back, get back into the routine, have the comforts again, and then go out again.
Yeah, because that was one thing at the end of the trip was I was so excited to not have to transition to a new hotel / Airbnb.
Yeah.
I was so excited to just have our family stay in the same place.
I think that's like we all said when we got home. I was like, oh, we don't have to wake up and pack the van and clean the place and move and drive for hours and then find another place and unpack and set up beds and
yeah.
Some PTSD about that.
It's fine. But yeah.
But that was the other thing was clothes too, because again we had 8 of us in our van, and so we each kid had a tote, and then Becca and I just shared.
We had a carry-on with
medium-sized
suitcase, but also Hugh's clothes were in there.
So we all, everyone had I think 3 outfits.
No,
3 or 4.
We were,
or
I feel like we had for almost a week-ish.
Gotcha.
Almost.
It was pretty limited.
But that was like that was like shorts, hoodies, pants. So had the week had lots of weather, it would have been for a week.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, because we had toques and mitts and swim shorts for Mexico, so had to pack it all. But that was another challenge. Is just, and it was good to kind of realize, hey, this is what we need, this is what we don't, and wearing the same black shirt, for most of the trip, and not that it wasn't washed, but not having a massive wardrobe wasn't awful, but it was sure nice to get home and be like, oh, I have more than 2 black shirts and 1 white shirt. So that was fun. But again, I wouldn't change it.
No,
it's pretty sweet just to go and have a minimal amount of stuff with the world as your oyster and pretty much be able to stop, hit up, do whatever you want, and just all be together having fun. I think that was pretty amazing.
It was awesome.
And I think the biggest takeaway was, and what we were hoping for, I think we accomplished it, was just kind of recentering our family and appreciating that we don't need anything else. This is us, and some of our kids that are known not to get along as well with each other as others. We'd be on the beach and you'd look over and everyone was just playing and having a blast and frolicking in the waves and building sandcastles and stuff, or at Disneyland running off to rides together and things like that. So
yeah, and I feel like that's what we wanted, was to just rebuild those relationships, and I feel like it has carried over, don't you? Like obviously they still fight, but I feel like it's better than it was before.
Yeah, and it's awesome to, this isn't late breaking by any means, but it's neat to be purposeful and plan these experiences, and that for years down the road it kind of serves as a centering post, or whatever you want to call it. But we look back and we've got the photos on our Google TV, so when the screensaver's on and pictures from our trip come in, we just everyone stops, oh, remember when we did that, or oh, that was so funny, or and so that's a big part of why we're doing this, and why we're shifting gears here, is we've definitely felt and experienced the power of memories and the power of experiences, and how they can bless your life forever, that they pay dividends moving forward. We even talking about Xi'an there, when we went for a week without any clothes and had the best trip ever. That was almost 14 years ago.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, but we still look back at that and it's like it happened recently. Like that's still, I could list you off so many of the cool things that we did there.
So fun.
Like, we laugh about it. So yeah, I think that's my main drive, my main push for why we're doing what we're doing, because I just want to create memories with the kids and with the family in these really cool and pivotal years, and that we can look back on them forever. So that's the way we walk her.
That's the way we walk her.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
I think that's it. That's all. Love you.